Welcome back, everybody, to Strange Planet Podcast. And for this week, we will be giving you an update on the con artist Donald Trump. And in recent news, the desperation bell has definitely been ringing, as he is selling everything from cologne to sneakers to even a Bible, which is pretty ironic because this is the least religious, let alone Catholic person I've ever seen in my life. And to add to the hilarity, supposedly this Bible that he's selling has the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution in it, which is great because now all the MAGA minions have access to a collection of books they've never read and know nothing about. Now me, I would never buy a single thing that con artist is selling, and I don't think anybody else here would as well too. But the funny thing about it is it looks like someone's having trouble with their legal expenses selling all this shit merchandise. But before I say any more, Mark, I believe you had a few things you wanted to bring up.
Well, yes, G. It does seem like this has not been a great week for our fearless leader in the sense of those who know what I mean by it. He's having trouble with this bond that he needs to put together, even though it's been reduced, because apparently they're looking into the guy who's flipping the bill for him, and he's apparently somebody who the Obama administration the DOJ was going after, and then when Trump became president, he pardoned him. And then this guy ran a insurance company that was charging like 90% interest to like almost 200% interest. So he was going down for that. Trump pardoned him, and all of a sudden now he's doing things for Trump. And he donated a whole bunch of money to Jared Kushner when, Trump was president. So or maybe after, but either way, Kushner got money from him. He's supposedly under the Knight Insurance or something along those lines. He runs that, and that's supposedly his way of flipping the bill for Trump. The problem is when they look to an insurance company for the bond, the insurance company has to have at least 10 times the bond amount available, like in their own collective thing. And I think this guy only has like 132 million or something to that effect. So that's one little kind of caveat that Trump has to deal with. Then there's the case with the documents in Mar-a-Lago with Jack Smith. So apparently Eileen Cannon is not doing things correctly, but she also did just deny him making the witnesses to his stuff public. So that the whistleblowers are now still kind of whistleblowers and not being denounced or at least shown who they are. So yeah, a couple other things that I can't remember off the top of the head, but hasn't had a good week.
Well, yeah, he tried to appeal. So his hush money trial is going to start next week with jury selection, and
that's right.
He tried and tried and tried again to get it delayed. He appealed to I think 3 different judges, and none of them heard his sob story and cared.
Well, that's
good. So this is going forward. That was I think it was about $130,000 paid to Stormy Daniels.
Real Christian-like, right?
Right before the election to get her to shut up about, his dealings with her in the bedroom or wherever the fuck they did it. So this is the first time that a former president is going to be a defendant in a criminal trial. It's going to be history in the making.
And it shouldn't be the last.
Not the most respectable history, but this is happening. This is not only a former president, but a presumptive nominee of a political party is on trial, in a criminal trial, a defendant.
Wow.
He could see prison time. So we're going to see, how this plays out, because there are a number of other trials, as you know, and they're also coming down the pike now. The trial that Trump's buddy judge Eileen Cannon presides over. Who knows how long that's going to take? There's definitely been dilatory tactics on the part of the judge in that case. She just recently ruled that there were the witnesses could remain anonymous for now. Trump had wanted to sort of out them so that so that he could probably sick his minions on, we'll have a Paul Pelosi situation where some random crazy person can, listen to Trump's rants about someone and go, attack one of the witnesses on behalf of Trump. And that would, affect their ability to testify. It would have a chilling effect on them. And so it's important that these witnesses not be tampered with and not be bothered by the general public in terms of, and when I say general public, I mean crazy Trump psychopaths,
right?
Who will, find out their address and do horrible things in the name of Trump. And he knows this. So that's why he so desperately wants to out them. And, it's ironic because, he's on trial for, fomenting an insurrection, for getting his supporters to commit violence on his behalf. And so this ruling by Eileen Cannon, sort of preserves the safety of those witnesses, but she still hasn't set a trial date. And the clock is ticking because all of a sudden you're going to have, Trump being the official Republican nominee, you're going to have the convention, and then you're going to have the election. And so when is the trial going to happen? If he gets reelected, how does that affect the trial? If he's convicted, do you put a president-elect in cuffs and haul him off to prison? How does that work?
He deserves
those are questions that we as a country shouldn't have to answer, but we might have to answer them at some point. It's fucking weird. But you can thank Donald Trump and his supporters for creating that scenario for us.
More or less.
Fucking embarrassment.
Yeah, it's a disgrace, really. And the thing that cracks me up about it is like what you were saying about like another Paul Pelosi kind of situation with the witnesses there and the tampering, if they were to be known, that is. And the thing that cracks me up is that these people will be willing to do this from someone that is literally giving them nothing. He doesn't give a shit about any of these people. Like, what is it? I just, to this day, I still just don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? What would make you mindlessly do something that stupid and that wrong on his account of all people, let alone anybody else, but more or less him, because that's what we're talking about. But you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck, really? Like, you got to be a really special kind of stupid to not only carry out something like that, but for someone that has literally done nothing for you. Like, I just can't get it. I can't wrap my head around that, let alone during his term, which he still, I was proud about, basically overturning Roe v. Wade, now taking a right away from women. So
yeah, even it's crazy how you had a law that banned abortion in Arizona from like 150 years ago. And you had Roe v. Wade, which was like half a century ago, basically making that law null and void. And then 50 years later, and that's 150 after the enactment of this abortion ban, all of a sudden, Arizona's Supreme Court says, you know what? In light of the fact that there's no more constitutional abortion right, we are going to recognize that law that was on the books that's 150 years old. And, it's an unexpected consequence of, because no one had really paid attention to that. That's why it took so long, several years later after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, for them to be like, oh, wait a minute. Abortion is actually illegal in the state of Arizona, according to this law. It took Arizona a while to say, like, hey, wait a minute. We have this law that's 150 years old that still applies today. because Roe v. Wade is gone and it no longer makes it null and void. So it's definitely an unintended consequence that is going to hurt Republicans, I think, in the state of Arizona in this election year. I mean, it's essentially a total abortion ban, and it's not something that Arizona was expecting.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. And just to get one thing cleared up, in case the listeners don't know, or maybe missed a few episodes in the past, none of us here, and I'm pretty sure I can say this for everybody, but none of us here are necessarily for abortion. But what we are for is the freedom of the woman to choose. And if that is the choice that she chooses, that's her choice, the way it should be. It's her body. You know what I'm saying? So the state, the fucking government, nobody should have a say in that. The only people that need to know is the women, the doctors, and the woman's family, if necessary. That's it. This is not supposed to be something.
Well, that's also a controversy. I mean, there's medical privacy because you can have a situation where a teenager gets pregnant and wants to have an abortion, and maybe she has like super Christian parents that won't let her have one. Is it still her right as a someone who, she's a teenager, but she's also a female, a woman, and to have to notify parents, then that kind of, has a chilling effect on her right to an abortion. It can get very complicated very quickly, but that is something that I don't think the government is suited or equipped to deal with. I think that having Roe v. Wade in place certainly allowed for people to make their own decisions with regard to abortion. And, that assurance is gone now, thanks to, an endless effort to overturn it and just Trump's being in the right place at the right time. Now, he likes to take credit for Roe v. Wade. I mean, he really didn't do shit.
It's true.
It was the Supreme Court that, he obviously picked, some of the most conservative, or the most conservative justices we've ever had.
Why nothing's getting done.
And so, yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to, take extreme positions like overturning, over half a century precedent. But Donald Trump needs to answer for this. At the polls in Arizona, the decision he made and the decision of the Supreme Court that he put in place that has an effect on people's lives, he's going to have to answer for that. And the Republican Party is going to have to answer for that. Because I don't think Trump cares that much about abortion. I honestly don't. He's not particularly religious. He's probably not religious at all.
He's even had some, probably.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right?
But it's just something that he can use to drum up votes. Of course, he's going to take advantage of the fact that they did it. He probably didn't give a shit. He just did what the Federalist Society told him to do in terms of nominating. That's all he did.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much the truth there, and that's what it is. And the sad part is this is why we can't have nice things, because history, this is a perfect example of history repeating itself in probably one of the worst of ways. And if we keep doing this kind of shit as a country, we're never going to...
What do you mean by history repeating itself?
Because, it's gone now. It was fine for 50 years, even though the Republicans hated it for so long. Because you're right. I really think that they care about this more than Trump does. Trump doesn't know his left hand from his right. So what the fuck does he know or even care about this? He's just probably getting all praise from them for it. And, he's wearing it like a badge of honor because it's the only thing maybe he actually did. And it is more harm than good, realistically. But what I mean is just it's just an endless cycle of the same shit happening every so often. even outside this, if you go to like environmental protection and stuff, Obama did a bunch of stuff. And then what's the first thing Trump did? Undo all those things. And then what did Biden do? He put some of those things back, but in his term and in his way, you can't solve an environmental crisis every 4 years. Whenever, like, you know what I mean? So it's just an endless cycle of just nothing really getting done. You have like one side, the Democratic side, that proposes and actually can get some stuff that done, not as much as we would like, thanks to the Republican Party, but some stuff does get passed, like healthcare, which what Obama was another good example of this. And then what do they want to do? They wanted to scrap that too. And then replace it with what? Nothing. You know what I mean? So how are we ever going to be able to keep moving forward when we got this kind of shit that just persists and is dragging us back? We can't we can't move towards the future if we still have 1 foot always in the past. You know what I mean? You're dragging that ass along, and it's just not, we're never going to see any prosperity at this rate if we keep up like this. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. Devil's advocate here for a second. I think that stems from a sense of nostalgia. Now, you, me, Brooke, everybody else out there, more or less, we grew up in an era that was probably one of the best, like the 80s and 90s. Now, every other generation will say theirs was the best, but like, I mean, we went outside, we did stuff.
No social media.
No social media. What was a cell phone? You would get on a payphone and call collect and be like, I'm like, bye. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There were things you used to do back in the day. Like you'd go out, you'd be out for 8-10 hours, maybe. That's how I grew up. We went out, we played in the woods, we rode our bikes around town, or
you did shit with your friends. Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you had a cell phone, it wasn't to live on. It was basically to call your friends to meet up somewhere to hang out. And then you put the phone back in your pocket. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I don't think these kids really do that anymore. You got a point there. Now it's like they just live on Instagram or fucking Facebook, and they don't like chill together anymore. It's just sit home and be miserable and do that. I don't get that. Maybe I'm missing something, but
everyone's stuck behind their screens. I mean, I do see some people still get together to do things, but like it's not like it was.
Nowhere near like it was. People would drive down the street and they'd see kids all over the place playing in yards and fucking at parks, and now it's like, Yeah, I remember even like shopping malls. Yeah, I remember even like shopping malls and like even outdoor like pavilions and stuff. Dude, it was crowded with people. Now everybody just barricades themselves at home. I guess COVID probably didn't help it, but it was going that direction anyway.
But
it was, it really was.
And I think, like I said, with that nostalgia. Sorry, I kind of went off topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nostalgic, but like I feel like the people that run the country, I mean, they have a lot of knowledge because they've done things, but I think they're also nostalgic for the time they grew up in. And these people want to live the past, and even some before that.
You know what I think it also could be too, adding to this? I think a lot of people don't realize that like the president himself can really only do so much. So like right now, Biden's getting blamed for a lot of shit that he really, I mean, maybe for some of the things he might be able to do like an executive order or something, but a lot of it is due to our dysfunctional Congress. That's what I think the real issue is. Because if you think about it, year after year, we talk about like, Christ, you can go back to the 80s and Bush Sr. was talking about getting off of foreign oil, and then like, all the crisis at the border and stuff. We have those same problems today. And then when something gets proposed to fix the problem, because remember they had one of the most biggest, I forget what his name was, Rook probably remembers, some conservative asshole they threw in there to propose some kind of like border shutdown thing. So it's like the Democrats literally called the Republicans bluff to do it. And then they said no. But you know why they say no? Because these are issues they use to run on. And then I think ping pong every 48 years. Well, it doesn't necessarily matter whose sides it favors, but if the problem never gets fixed, it's always something to run on. See what I'm saying? Like right now, all the Trump people are, oh my God, the border, the zombies, they're coming. But when something was proposed to shut it down, literally, no, we can't do that. Well, then you can't be that worried about it, can you?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like hypocrisy almost. And then by never resolving these issues, they always are issues that are debatable and used to run for elections.
What does that model remind you of? How about
stupidity?
No, but that model reminds me exactly of what they do at the doctor's office. Why cure the sickness or disease when you can just treat it,
right?
And have them keep coming back?
Yeah, it makes a client rather than a one-time purchase kind of thing.
When are we going to get into an area of resolve where we complete things and not just put bandages on everything?
I'm just going to say, as long as the Republican Party's involved, you're never going to see it. Because I honestly, even in the past, if you don't go as far back as 30 years, even if you go back as far as, say, 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years, all I've been seeing is usually when Democrats get power, you actually do see little spurts of things that actually come, like Obamacare, like healthcare was a prime example of that. But anytime there's a Republican president, all they're ever focused on is themselves, small government, and undoing anything the predecessor did, whether it was good or bad, usually when it's good. So when you have something like that, and then that gets put into office every, say, 4 to 8 years, how can you ever move forward and make something that might not be perfect even better?
Well, the problem first is restoring the faith in the system itself. And with the Republicans going crazy and the Democrats, barely being able to get things done, I think voters are just fed up with the whole situation. Like, it doesn't matter who I vote for. One will ruin it. One will take forever to fix it. It's just like things don't get done fast enough in this country. And I think that's partially because of that might be partially because of just the way people are nowadays. They're more like, I want it now rather than later.
Right. But what I also have gathered too, when it comes to like the border situation there, that's something I think Congress has to fix. They have more pull in that than the president really can. The president can do probably a little more maybe than they are, but the bottom line is that's something I feel like Congress could fix faster, but just won't.
Right. Here's the thing. It's you say fix, but the problem with the border is it's a very complicated situation. How do you, as a border person, decide who stays and who goes? You can either A, shut it all down and nobody gets in, and then people call you inhumane for not letting refugees come in when they're trying to flee bad governments and gangs and whatnot. Or B, you let the doors open and let everybody in, and you get all the meth heads and the fucking gangs and shit that they talk about, because that will happen. You'll get those people in there and they'll do bad things. So, I mean, you can't close it all the way. You can't open it all the way. You have to find some final resolve to say, look, we're going to have to go a very strict way to get in here, and crying refugee won't get you all the way in. There has to be some humane way with keeping the borders closed. Now, of course, there are easy technological fixes, but no one's going to want to do it. And I'll say it now, you chip everybody coming in.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you got to get that crazy with it, but I think look,
right there, automatically why is that crazy?
I would never want it, no matter what country I'm in, especially this one, I would never want a chip in me. Fuck that. I'm not a squirrel. And neither are you.
What would you be afraid of? What would you be afraid of having a chip on you?
I don't want any kind of device in me for tracking or whatever. Even if they say it can. You think I trust that shit? Fuck no.
I mean, that would be the point of the chip, is to track, your movements.
But if they're in here legally, they shouldn't need a chip. You know what I mean?
That's the problem of legally. It's like people get past the system.
But that's the thing. They need a better system. It needs to be updated. It needs to be fixed. And it also needs to be modified So it could be maybe a little bit more sensible. They could come in legally and then work.
But you're dealing with human beings, not, cartons of stuff. It's not black or white with everybody that comes to the border.
Well, right. But see, the problem is this. When the people do come here, especially if they're illegal, I guess the way the current system, correct me if I'm wrong here, Rook, but I guess the current system, the way it works is even if they're here illegally, once they're challenged for it, if they say there's a specific way, like I think a specific way, but if basically summing it up, if they basically just say like, oh, well, if I go back, I'm feared for my life, then they're obligated to stay then. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we should kick him out and then go die because that's not right either. But I still think
it's not. You're talking about what? Seeking asylum?
Yeah, that's where I was heading. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, asylum is definitely a process, and it's not just as simple as saying I'm afraid for my life. They have to be coming from a place where they're legitimately under threat from
like tyranny,
persecution, and then they have to provide evidence that this is taking place, or they're really at risk of death if they are returned. So it's not just as simple as saying, "Oh, I'm afraid for my life." There's a process for asylum seekers.
And then the thing people also don't realize too is, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Biden's actually deported more than Trump. So people are trying to say he's not doing anything. He's doing shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I don't am I the biggest Biden fan in the world? Fuck no. But do I think he's the better choice over the other fucking clown? Not a thought in my mind would think otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, it's common sense at this point. You know what I mean? There's plenty of proof in front of you. So if you're still on this MAGA train, I don't know what to tell you anymore, because you must love casinos and losing, because that's really what it sums up to. You just get nothing in return, and yet you still stay on the bandwagon. I'll never get it. And that's all we got for this week, everyone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Strange Planet will have new episodes on YouTube every Friday. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.